Chapter 14. The Raybun Inn in southeast Nassim was a basic, nondescript hostel. Every town of any size in Imarina had at least one, and the Raybun was one of a half dozen in Nassim. It sat well off the main thoroughfares through the city, something Corrigan noted would help them slip through the city unnoticed. The Raybun sported a simple layout. To the left and right were symmetrical two-story wings. Both contained 8 identical rooms, 4 upstairs, 4 down, with an open staircase at the entrance to each wing. The center of the inn housed the tavern and kitchen. The second-floor wings looked out over the tavern floor, which at this time of evening was rollicking. Only a few tables and a couple of bar stools remained unoccupied. The aromas of grilled meat and the sounds of conversation filled the space. For the rest of the well-traveled party, securing accommodations was part of the routine and rhythm of being on the road. The others waited near the entrance while Corrigan went to find the proprietor. But for Bach, it was an unfamiliar experience completely. "Oh, it's nothing so special." Aventil shot a wave and a smile to the waitstaff. "These places all look, feel, and taste alike after a while. The same bare pine walls, the same lumpy mattresses, the same watery beer. Even the smells of cooking smoke and cheap soap intermingling. By the exalted one, I practically grew up in these places." "Really? These places seem so... well, I just thought..." Aventil laughed. "That a rich noble family wouldn't stay in a working person's inn? My parents stay at the finest hotels, unless they decide to stay in their ship's luxury quarters in dock. But they told us children, 'You have to earn your place at our table.' They made my sister, brother, and me stay at the same inns as our servants, once we were old enough to hold our own fork and spoon. We only could join them when we had proved our worth." He paused. "My sister and brother now stay at the big hotel. Whenever they travel on business, I am not entrusted to join." A pang shot through Bach's heart. Mother and father had so little, but everything they had, they shared freely with Yata and me. How I wish I could tell them how grateful I am. But why would they do that, Aventil? The noble pulled up a worn, smooth wooden bench and motioned for Bach to sit with him. "Just before my 16th summer, my parents offered to let me captain my first ship, leading men and women twice my age on a month-long trading voyage. I refused because a young woman had stolen my heart." He glanced over at Isabella, who moved closer to Aventil. "I didn't tell them that young woman was our future queen. Still, it was a test, as are most things with my parents. And I failed, as I usually do." Aventil sighed and slapped both of his knees. "Anyway, that's why the commander's choice of accommodations doesn't bother me." His now familiar smile returned. "Come on, let's find a clean table. Maybe Corrigan can negotiate a late-night snack and some wine with the innkeeper." Unsurprisingly, Kotarian was less sanguine about the group's plans for the night. "I spotted at least 3 halfway tolerable hotels in the nicer part of Nassim. Nicer being a relative term, of course. Why the commander insisted on this flea trap, I shall never know." The commander walked back in time to hear Kotarian's complaints. "This place is out of the way. Less likely that we'll be spotted in this part of town. Just remember to check your mattresses for bedbugs." Kotarian flinched. "Ugh. By Nawalian's noxious nodules, this place is a hellhole. I need a stiff drink, and soon." The innkeeper, a bulbous man with a walrus-like mustache and a pronounced limp, wobbled from the inn storeroom to the front desk. "What'll it be? We're out of lamb stew, if that's what you want." "3 rooms, Side by side, if you've got 'em, Corrigan said. The innkeeper rubbed his stubby chin as he sized up the traveling party and made some mental calculations. Well, we're pretty busy tonight, but I think I got 2 rooms on the east wing and 1 on the west. 7 silver apiece. It was twice the going rate, but he placed the coins into the innkeeper's eager hand and gestured to his colleagues to take a seat at one of the few available tables. None of them paid much attention to the 4 people sitting in the back of the room, hats pulled low over their faces. Anyway, after that incident, we were so ready to leave Hasnik, we agreed to buy 400 crates of purple trousers. Aventil gestured excitedly as the rest of the table guffawed. Thankfully, the general was willing to call it even. But how were we supposed to know he was allergic to goat's milk? You do not know how lucky you were, Isabella laughed. The general is notorious for cutting out his enemies' tongues. If only we had been so fortunate. Kotarian drained a glass of wine, hardly his first of the evening. He poured another, turning the wine pitcher upside down to allow every remaining drop to splash into his cup. Come on, Kotarian. You have a better story to share? Let's hear it, Aventil said. Kotarian rolled his eyes. If you insist. A while back we received a new crop of first-year apprentices, aspiring members of the house. This one boy only applied because his father's some earl or some such, and dear old daddy always wanted a sorcerer in the family. But the boy just kept to himself, afraid to talk to anyone, apologizing for getting in the way. You know the sort. Kotarian shot a look at Bach, who sat directly in front of him at the far end of the table. Bach tensed, but continued to listen. We discovered he carried a torch for a girl in his class. A young lady from a high-born family far too good for the likes of him. But this boy kept making big cow eyes at her. So one day, I took him aside and offered to help him win his lady love. I pumped him full of courage, wrote him bad poetry to read, handed him some wilted flowers, and sent him to her dormitory. Kotarian paused for another drink of wine. By this point he giggled as much from the alcohol as the pending punchline to the story. So he goes up there and... Kotarian paused to suppress a chuckle. Knocks on her door. But he doesn't realize I've cast Euralian's unseen utility on his clothes. He may be wearing his finest outfit, but to everyone else, he appears to be stark naked. The poor boy dropped out the next day and returned to wherever he calls home. I suppose he wasn't house material. No one else laughed, but Kotarian exploded in a rapid, almost wheezing laugh. Bach's face flushed, and his fists clenched. The gaze Isabella directed toward their end of the table let Bach know she was disgusted too. Tovano set his cup on the table. I believe this old man will retire for the night. I shall as well. Isabella stood to leave, Aventil and Wingate joining her. What? Can none of you appreciate a good joke? Kotarian scoffed. Fine. I will go to my room as well. Better there here with you milksops. Your Majesty excluded, of course. Kotarian muttered a few more drunken words and staggered up from the table, nearly tripping over his own feet in the process. Tovano leaned over Bach's shoulder. He's never going to make it up the stairs by himself. I'd better assist him in getting to his room. After all, we would be lost without the Exalted One's personal gift to sorcery. Duvano put his arm under Kotarian's and steered the tipsy young sorcerer up the staircase. Sleep well, my friend. Isabella gave Bach a quick hug. Her jasmine-scented perfume electrified his nostrils, making his pulse jump. She and her entourage climbed the steps, leaving Bach alone at the table with his thoughts. Has it just been a few days? I feel like I've known these friends for years, but I have neglected to think of my family as much as I should. How I wish they were here, including Yata, even if that meant taking a punch to the shoulder. And then there's the princess. It's all just fantasy, of course. Romances between different classes are frowned upon, and she loves Evantil. I'd never try to come between them. When this journey was over, whatever its outcome, I will return to my normal life in Sola Valley, and they will remain in their world, which I can never be part of again. Bach sipped his beer and stared into the mug. In some ways, it would be easier if Isabella and Aventil acted like the condescending elitists Bach once imagined all nobles to be. But losing those friendships, after having experienced their warmth, would be heartbreaking. Bach drained the last of his drink, then collected his friends' mugs and returned them to the bartender. Might as well do a small kindness for a stranger before turning. Aye, Aventil! Isabella! Heart pounding, Bach sprinted for the stairs.